Good evening, everyone. Today I'm joined by singer and guitarist Tod Howarth of Frehley's Comet and 4 by Fate, who is here to talk about his back history and the recent John Regan Memorial Concert held in Poughkeepsie, New York. Tod, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC.
Lance, thank you for having me here. I'm very happy to be here and to be upright, honestly. But yes, I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Well, thanks, and thanks you for turning this around in really short notice. So, you and I were together about a week ago in Poughkeepsie for this night, and we're going to talk a lot about that event. But
Cool.
first, before we get to that, I want to go back in time. So let's go back to the summer of 1987 and 1988. I was 17, turning
Wow.
18. CDs were just coming out, and I got my first car. It was a 1976 light blue Buick Skylark that was a hand-me-down, and I was the fourth and last guy in my family to get it. But Tod, this was the first time I had a CD player in that car, and I can tell you in all sincerity, the Frehley's Comet CD was on constant play over and over and over and over again. And I will tell you, it's funny. Some of my best buddies still, and one of them was over this past weekend, and we were talking about the show, and we were recalling how back in those summers, we all tried to sing along like Tod, but it was like nobody could hit the high notes, and we would try, and we would just crackle them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Back then, that was what 30, almost 38 years ago. Actually, 30. Yeah, about 37, I guess. But yeah, yeah. Some of the notes that I've got a good range. My range is still good, but yeah, I hit some trees in there, didn't I?
Oh man, but it was just listen, it's like we all have those points in time where it's like the soundtracks of your lives. Again, being
Right.
17 and 18, I'm 54 now, but I remember it like yesterday. We were talking about the shows too back then. I was at my first ever Frehley's Comet show at the Beacon Theater. It was September of '87, I think it was, with White Lion and Y&T, and then of
Yep.
course the Iron Maiden tour at the Meadowlands Arena in East Rutherford the following summer. So those are the
Right.
times when you would see a band 2, 3 times, maybe 4 times in a matter of a year and a half, because they were always coming through.
Mhm. Yeah,
Right.
those are good times. I mean, touring wise, and for the fans, it was great because they could see a band, and a few months later, let's see them again. To go back into like Cheap Trick when I'm touring with them, it's like, weren't we just here? I mean, did we just play this venue? Like every few months or so.
That's fun. So talking about Cheap Trick, so a little bit about, let's say, your back history. I mean, maybe your first band that we have knowledge about was the band called 707, but you did spend time with Cheap Trick and even Ted Nugent, and had some, let's say, participation on the Penetrator album and
Yep.
tour. So maybe just take us back to the beginning in your, let's say, your musical start.
Yeah, that's the first big band that I ever played with out of LA. They were originally from Detroit or Michigan area, I guess I should say. And I had seen them at a place called the Starwood here in LA. I'm here in San Diego. And I remember looking at him going, oh, that's cool. All the keyboard player, he sings and he plays guitar just like me. And I'm not sure if I'd moved up there yet or not, but I was soon to be living there. And then it come to pass that some friends of mine said, hey, that the band 707 is looking for somebody, maybe you should audition. So I got I got the record and I found the management on the backside and I called them up and said, hey, I'm so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And they said, oh, wow, thanks for calling us. We just hired somebody for the tour, but thank you. We'll keep your name on file. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, sure. I said, okay, well, thank you very much. And sure enough, a few months later, they called me up. I guess the guy didn't work out, and they called me, and I went and auditioned. I had to audition twice because the first time I showed up, I was just a little too Hollywood, and I nailed it. I mean, as far as I knew, I thought I nailed the audition, and the managers liked me, and they said, look, just come back, in a week or two, tone it down, don't be so Hollywood, and dress a little bit more like they're dressing, and do the same thing, and I'm sure it'll work out. And that's exactly what I did. It worked, and that was my first big band, and it was we went out and toured with REO Speedwagon and the High Infidelity tour, which was the biggest tour I've done to date. It was huge. And I thought, I'm on my way, and that wasn't the case.
That was big times, high infidelity. That was their peak. They were on MTV and radio and everything else like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
So
was phenomenal. I just ran the um, um, uh, I just ran the Cronin. Got a couple. God, last year I guess it was. I went to see Robin Zander's son play, and Robin was there, and Pam, his wife, Pam was there, and Kevin Cronin was there. I was like, oh, gee, hey, Kevin, what's going on? Long time no see, you know. But yeah, great tour.
and talk about your time with Uncle Ted and give us some Uncle Ted stories. I mean, Penetrator, I mean, I was a little young for that when it came out, but I became a pretty big Bad Company fan later on, and Brian Howe took over for Bad Company in the late '80s, and that was the one album that he sang on. So, did you play with these guys in the studio, or were you just on the road with them?
Well, because 707 was on tour with a bunch of bands and including Ted Nugent, you know, doing Summerfest. Ted took a liking to our band. Long story short, when 707 had finally disbanded, uh, at that point, Ted had asked me to sing backgrounds, and Kevin Russell, a guitar player from 707, to sing backgrounds for the Penetrator tour, a Penetrator album, which they're recording in San Francisco. So we did, and then Ted and manager asked me, "Hey, after I moved back down here to San Diego, they called me up and said, hey, we would like to have you come out and do the tour. You know, you're doing keyboards and guitar and singing. Could you do that?" I said, well, yeah, hell yeah. So January, I flew back out there and we did a couple weeks of rehearsals, and we headed straight for Europe. And Brian Howe was singing. Initially, we had, oh God, a different bass player. God, the name escapes me now. Uh, Bowles. Brian Bowles? No, not Brian. Mark Bowles. Mark Bowles.
Mark Bowles, right?
Yeah, yeah, great guy, great singer, great singer. He was playing bass, and he was like a backup singer in case, you know, not backup, but a backup to if Brian was to bail, you know, at least that Ted would have a singer and Ted would sing. They didn't want me singing lead. I don't think they really knew that I could sing lead, or they weren't interested. But we did all the Europe stuff. Then we came back to the States, and Mark left, and Dave Caswini came back in and played bass, and it was a fun band. Ted is Ted. You know, he wasn't all. I mean, he's political back then, and his stance is, you know, very much like mine. But I wasn't so outspoken or even thinking about it back then as much, and neither was he. But we had a lot of fun. The tours were great. Ted found out I could drive, you know, and so pretty soon we were racing the streets and with two cars, and you know, with the bands. And we had picnics at his ranch where we shot guns and ate bear and deer and had a blast, you know, doing that. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was about 6 straight months with Ted. And then I thought we were going to take a break and do it again, but you know, that never happened. And that's just the business. But yeah, Ted was, he had the gift of gab, and sometimes in Europe, he'd be driving, I'd be up front, and I'd fall asleep, and we'd be driving to the next gig, and I'd wake up, and he'd still be talking just to himself. He'd go, yeah, well, and then I was this, and I'm shooting that, and I'm looking, I'm like, wow, doesn't he ever shut the hell up, you know? But it was funny times. I mean, a good. He had a great sense of humor. And very prolific in interviews, and I mean, I learned a lot, and I had a great time with him.
That's good stuff. It's just as we know Ted for, let's say, the general public seeing him on TV and on radio,
Yeah.
but glad you had that experience. So,
Yeah.
you know, we wanted to talk about the legacy of John Regan, but as you get into the Frehley's Comet era, as we started at the top of the show, you came in the late '80s. It was '87 or so, and Ace had already sort of put together a band. Richie Scarlet was his original, let's say, rhythm guitarist and co-lead singer, or whatever you want to call it. But then right before you guys cut the album, you came in, and I believe I recall you maybe even mentioning at the concert last week that John was pivotal in getting you in the door. So just talk about how you got in the door with Ace and Frehley's Comet.
Well, John actually built that band, Frehley's Comet. I mean, he had Arthur Stead, who played with him in John Waite's band, when they were on tour. That's how I met John Regan when I was playing with Cheap Trick, and John Wayton and Cheap Trick were doing co-headline bill. We'd swap whoever was headliner, and that's where I met John. And we talked a lot about just music stuff and what I could do. And he said, I'm working on a project right now you might be good for. And in the original Frehley's Comet, they had uh, Arthur Stead playing keyboards, and Richie Scarlet was he sang some leads, but he was a lead guitar player. He's a phenomenal lead guitar player, still is to this date, obviously. And we're really good friends. We were never enemies. People thought we hate each other, and that never was the case. I mean, I didn't really know him until I met him at KISS conventions. But what happened is I think John and everybody wanted to, except for Richie, they wanted to downstream the band to just 4 members. And I think I may have had more of a commercial viability at that point in time that John thought would be beneficial for the Frehley's Comet. So I was still playing with Cheap Trick, and John said, "Hey, this is who I'm working with. You should come out and audition." So I had the person who did our travel for Cheap Trick. I had them fly me into New York in and route to wherever the hell I was going back out on tour. I did do this twice because the first audition, Ace was like, he's okay. Ace, he wanted more of I think, a lead guitar player than a songwriter. I can play lead, but everything I do is melody. It's all construct. I'm not a jammer. Where, Richie Scarlet, you can put him anywhere, he just smokes. That's the kind of player he is. So I think Richie was better suited for the band than I was on that respect. But I was more of a songwriter, blah, 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 which I think would have been beneficial had we gone a different route. So second time I came through, I'd given them some songs that I'd written, which would end up being on the first album. And Ace said, okay, maybe he'll work, And so John had put the band together, and it was, part of the album was already recorded. And I came in and finished up my tracks and embellished some existing tracks. I did not put a lot of the what I call Tinker Bell type keyboard stuff on songs. I would never play that stuff. My keyboard structures are very much more Babies, Zeppelin with strings and piano that would have some nuts to them and that kind of thing. Even though people think I was trying to bring the band down with "It's Over Now," the power ballad, but that was just nothing could be further from the truth. But that's how I got into Frehley's Comet, and I was in the band for about a year and a half until everything hit the crapper.
Well, I mean, again, as we talked about earlier, I love that, the first album. I mean, you brought the song Calling to You from, let's say, your original writing from 707 onto the album. You recorded
Right.
Breakout with your vocal on it. And, who could forget Something Moved, which is your story about a ghost, right?
Thank
But
you. Yeah.
funny story about Calling to You is Metal Mayhem ROC. We recently did a crossover episode where we had a bunch of panel experts, and we took a look at let's say, the 80s era rock, the hair rock, and we came up with our best top 5 plus 2 honorable mention deep cuts. So no videos, no MTV hits, none of that stuff that ever, was still on overplay 40 years later. And Calling to You was in my top 5. And everybody else agreed that it was a great pick. You guys even beat out Vinnie Vincent Invasion, but I had to give those guys an honorable mention. So
That it's a great song. In 707, it was called Megaforce. We were asked to do a song for a movie, which would be Megaforce. So the story behind that is that Kevin Russell, lead guitar player, and I wrote the basics of the tune. I don't know the balance of who wrote more. I guess it really doesn't matter, but it's definitely a lot of me in there. And I'm pretty sure I wrote a majority of the melody. And then the drummer Jim McClarty, who I'm still good friends with, he wrote the lyrics. Jim was a very good lyricist, a great drummer. He played piano and guitar as well, so very accomplished. And so he wrote the lyrics, which turned out to be very good lyrics. And then a new lead singer was Kevin Shelfont, who would later go on to be in the Storm, I think with Greg Raleigh. But a phenomenal lead singer. He did that song. So and the movie came out, and the movie was far different from what I thought it was going to be. But needless to say, they didn't really push the song and didn't put it where it should have been, and everything kind of took a dive. But we thought the song was pretty strong because when you first start writing a song, with the words Megaforce in it, like, and we go, how the hell are we going to write Megaforce, Megaforce, Megaforce? It didn't make any sense to me, like there's no melody here. But we wrote it. And then when I was going through the catalog with Ace in his condo in West Side in New York, and we were up there talking about all my stuff, and we came across a song and I played it for him. He goes, I like that song. I said, yeah, it's a good song. I said, I'd rather write new stuff for this record than, rehash the other stuff. Well, he was fascinated with the fact that, the song was called Megaforce, and that was the title of his record company that was being distributed by Atlantic,
Yeah.
So he pushed it. He said, we should do this. Well, I really don't want to, Ace. At that point in time, I didn't want to have to get in touch with all the co-writers. Kevin Russell and I had a falling out, which has been off and on for years. And I said, I don't feel like getting in touch and doing that. But Ace was persistent. And he was the boss. It was his record deal. I said, okay. So we got a hold of him and the other writers, of which Jonathan Cain from the Babies and then Journey wrote the intro for the song. And that's another story, which is in my autobiography. We had to share a piece of that because it ended up on the record, and he had nothing to do with the song except for the intro. I love Jonathan Cain; he's a phenomenal musician, but I digress. Back to the Calling to You became Calling to You. Ace changed a couple words in the release and into the chorus, a couple lines, which is fine. I mean, it worked out fine, and people loved it. I was surprised actually at the fans' reactions because they were like, "Oh, this is a great song." And I'm thinking, well, thank you. Yeah, I think it was a good song initially, and now people are enjoying it. So it was the right move to do. Ace was right in re-recording the song, changing it up. And Kevin Shelfont was phenomenal singer. He's a better lead singer than I am. That was his gig. That's what he did. And I re-sang it, and I did okay with it, I think. I'm not a fool to admit that they're better singers than me. I know that, and that's just the way the world rolls. But it came out pretty good, and I'm proud of what we accomplished.
Oh, definitely. It's still a favorite. And I know you did re-record it for the 4 by Fate on the Relentless album. So, and you're still playing it live. It's a fan favorite. You're opening your shows with it. So, it's withheld to test the time over a 40-year period for sure.
We actually, thank you, and I think it has for some of the purists. We re-recorded "It's Over Now." We didn't record "Calling to You."
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. I'm all of a sudden I went, oh God, let me look at the record. Is that right?
That's
No,
my
that's not
bad.
right. I have to remember it. People ask, what do you think about this track? I said, what album was that on? I don't remember. Which seems pretentious and stupid, but yeah, the Relentless record, getting back to that, that's why I was called. Well, it's another topic, but that's why I titled the record "Relentless" because we were pushing ass to get it done. My God, you know.
Well, and then, again, now that we were talking about It's Over Now, I mean, that song was originally recorded on Second Sighting, your second album with Frehley's Comet, and you had a bigger role in that album. Many more of your songs were on that album. Time Ain't Running Out, Loser in a Fight, Fallen Angel, and New Kind of Lover.
Mhm.
A funny side story as I was thinking about us talking today, I was remembering the mixtape that I made my high school girlfriend at the time, and it had It's Over Now on it. But it was funny if you think about it, how dumb I was at 17, because thinking this is a love song. And then it sort of is a ballad. And then guess what happened? The second I went off to college, she dumped my ass. So it was over.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I wrote the song for Cheap Trick to do back in '86, '86, yeah, '86, and they passed on it. And so I brought it over and I played it for John Regan while we were mixing the first record in the studio. I just played on the grand piano, and he just sat there and went, "Whoa!" And he goes, "That is phenomenal. We'll have to do that for the second record." And I thought, "All right, yes." So we did it, and then a lot of people said the very same thing. It holds a special place in their heart for their loved ones or lack thereof, I guess, in your case, sorry.
It's okay. It was a
But
long time ago.
it was a song actually to my ex-wife, my first wife, who's in the video. Uh, and not many people realize it, but it was kind of like an underlying warning to her to just relax, lighten up. You know, I'm not going anywhere. You know, you don't have to worry. I'm right here. You know, blah blah blah. But you know, I had to try to say, look, just you know, I mean, that's getting the personal stuff, which I'll share. But you know, just there was problems in the relationship, and I just needed her to chill out, and
Mhm.
uh, which she did not. So, hence, you know, I was out of there. But it was a warning song to her, actually, but
Okay.
it sounds like a love song, you know.
Well, what about the rest of the songs on the album? I mean, listen, it's no secret, and we're not knocking Ace here, but you know, he was Space Ace. He was not sober at the time, and I can only imagine it was probably difficult to be for like. I always looked at you guys just being the general public fan as a teenager, as you and John were like the stable forces, the voice of reason. You know, I was like, I can only imagine the antics that were going on, but I guess shortly after that Iron Maiden arena tour, because that was the Seven Son of a Seven Son tour, I guess you made a decision to leave the band, correct?
Well, what happened is, for first off, for Second Sighting, uh, we did the first record, then we did the live record, and then the record company wanted to do another record, and Ace wasn't ready. Now, Ace's style of writing is defined as many different procedures. Let's just put it that way. He's written some great songs. I mean, you know, you can't deny that. I mean, and his iconic guitar playing is phenomenal, unmatched, you know, for what he does. But he wasn't ready with songs. So, and he didn't have, excuse me, enough tracks to put on the record, and we were up against time frame. Then he got sick with a bronchitis. So the drinking thing, I don't really know if he was overly drinking. He was drinking, but I don't remember him being, you know, schnockered too much to go in the studio. He just wasn't well, nor did he have songs ready. So John and I were like, okay, we got to get this done. That's why, you know, a lot of my songs, and I was, you know, prolific songwriter. Then I was churning them out, and I had more, and I wanted to do more with Ace, but we didn't get that opportunity. But yeah, I did lose her in a fight, and I gave part of the writing credit to John, and I said, Ace, we should sing this together. It needed to be heavier, needed to have more production, but we just ran out of time. But so a lot of my songs ended up on the record, and then all of a sudden, people, the fans thought, "Oh, now Todd wants to have it Howarth's Comet." Well, that's ridiculous. I wasn't in Kiss, and I knew that. And you know, I was just trying. Okay, we got to get this done. Here we go. Granted, it probably should have been heavier, more geared towards Ace, but that was my writing style. My writing style was me. Uh, and then we went out and Ace, you know, pulled together enough for us to complete the record, then go back out and tour, and we did the Iron Maiden thing. And then when what happened with that tour, we had to bail on that tour because we ran out of money.
Oh wow.
We just ran out of money as far as finances go. So we had to fly. Everybody had to go home. We had to. I had to. Everybody had to reinvest their money from merchandise sales. I think I reinvested at that time 30 grand that I really could use
Wow.
for my family back into the band. To keep it going, we probably didn't, and I didn't run it, but things were probably overspent. So we all went home to lick our wounds, and you know, it's kind of alarming, like what's going to happen next. So all of a sudden, we regroup, some phone calls and meetings, and I learned that the suits and the labels and records company wants Ace to write and sing the next record in its entirety, not me. Uh, I mean, I wasn't even going to be like, how do we, and the only money I was making was from publishing royalties. So unless we're touring and I'm not making any money anywhere, I'm thinking this is not working out too well, too good for me. I said, really? So I can't
Mhm.
write or sing anymore? So it was, you know, like that to me. And it was so many steps out, you know, backwards that I said, look, I called Ace. I said, I got to leave. There's no way I can stay. And why? I wish you wouldn't. You know, I said, I'd love to stay, but Ace, how am I going to make a living? At that
Yeah.
time, I had 3 kids, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I left. I was never fired. I wasn't fired because I wrote It's Over Now. I wasn't fired because I was trying to put keyboards all over the place. I wasn't fired because I was trying to be Howard's Comet, Comet. It's just people said, "Hey, Frehley's comment," Um,
He's coming.
that's Frehley's comment. Which comment would that be? Uh, but yeah, that was just the plain truth. That's what actually happened. And then sometimes the stories were embellished or fabricated about why Todd was let go from the band. I was like, I was never let go. I left. But
Yeah.
that's what it was.
All right. So now, so maybe talk about your friendship and let's say your continued business relationship with John, because you come back many, many years later. And again, I was with you guys along the way, and I was looking at my list of concerts. In 2014, you guys played a show out in Amityville, Long Island, and that was like very early 4 by Fate. You guys had Svet Holland on drums, not Robafuso.
Right.
And then again, eventually you got out and put the 4 by Fade album out. I think I had seen you at the there was an outdoor music festival in Jersey. It was fall,
Yeah.
September of 2016. You remember that one? The
Yeah. It
outdoor
was. It
one,
was,
the rock
it was
rock
drizzling.
carnival. Yes,
Yeah.
it was Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock. It was cold and rainy. You
Oh,
remember that day, right?
yeah, because John was having a conniption about that day. He was just things weren't lining. John was used to big tours. Playing with Frampton and the
Yeah.
Stones and Mick Jagger and David Lee Roth and all these. And things were run accordingly. And we're just flying by the seat of our ass. But yeah, I remember that show. Sted Howland was the original drummer, and we also had Sean Kelly from Crash Kelly, a Canadian
Hmm.
guitar player. Phenomenal guy, a great guitar player. But as we were recording, Stet didn't even make the recording because the weekend that we had slated to do the 6 basic tracks, he got in a car accident. So I'm already in New York, and John was like, "What? We got to get this done," And Stet didn't even. I love Stet. We're still good friends, but he didn't even tell us. He didn't call. Hey, I'm in a car wreck. I'm not gonna be able to make it.
Oh.
Like son of a bitch. So Danny Stanton got a hold of AJ Pero from Twisted Sister, of course, because he
Hmm.
worked with Sister. And AJ Pearl was smoking drummer, so he did the first 6 tracks. And Sean Kelly never made the studio. We sent tracks out to him, and he sent them back to us. And a lot of the stuff was phenomenally placed. I said, I'd really like a Red Beach thing going, and he nailed it. But he withdrew from the band as well because he says, look, I was expecting Frehley's Comet. You guys are really heavy, and I didn't expect it to be that heavy. And I'm like, we're not really heavy.
Yeah.
Where he's coming from. So we got Pat Gasparini in, who had written a track that John had recorded and said, we got to do the song. And, Pat Gasparini is a prolific songwriter still. And,
Hmm.
that's who did, of course, the 4 by Fate thing this last Friday. And we're good pals. We talk day to day. But John and I, after Frehley's Comet, we had talked periodically over the years just to catch up, see what's going on. And 4 by Fate actually came about because John was thinking, hey, let's do a reunion gig if I can get together, get Ace together and agree to do it. Let's do a 25-year anniversary gig
Hmm.
with Frehley's Comet. Are you in? I said, yeah, I'll do it. And even Anton wanted to do it. Anton to this day still wanted to do something. Matter of fact, Anton was supposed to be there last Friday. Well, I'm
Oh.
segueing all over the place, but Anton couldn't be there because he still was testing positive for COVID. He had just gotten over
Oh.
it.
Okay. Okay.
So I
But you
said,
guys
yeah, maybe
stayed
I'll get up
together,
and come in.
and that Relentless album, it's a good album. It's got the variety on there. It's got, Pat singing, you singing. It was just really, really good all those years later to see you and John to come back and continue to collaborate and give us the fans the opportunity to get out and see you on the road. And then of course you returned. It was in 2019 with the Return of the Comet, which again, it played up by me at the Debonair Music Hall in Teaneck, New Jersey. And of course, you had Steve Budgie Warner and Richie Scarlet in the band. And from what I
Oh,
recall that night, if my memory is
phenomenal.
correct, Ace was playing in the area that same night. And I remember there's rumors flying all over the places. When Ace's show is done, is he going to come down to the Debonair Hall and jam? And it didn't happen, of course. But cool show.
No, no, no. Yeah, thank you. It was that that band with Budgie Warner is amazing drummer, And I'm still thinking about doing write some songs for a new type of 4x8 thing, which will include many artists, or the artists, including Richie Scarlet. I love that guy to death. Just a phenomenal guitar player. But unfortunately for me, I had the influenza 4 times in 2019, and then it got into my vocal cords. So for
Mm.
half of those shows for Return of the Comet, I was singing it maybe 50%. I had no
Mm.
wind and I had no vocal cords, and I felt horrible for the fans that came out and paid and wanted to hear some blistering shit. Only the last couple of shows that we did with Return of the Comet I singing at my best, and actually the band was really tight by then, so we did some great shows. But I felt bad for the people that did see the first part of those shows. It was horrible, but um, it was a good try. A good friend of ours who Tommy Higgins, who's a great guitar player and songwriter himself, he organized that band. And I know Tommy Higgins from Aerosmith because he had contacted me years ago about some Aerosmith things, and we tried to put it together, but it just didn't take off like we hoped it would,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And it just, again, it is what it was.
Yeah. So, as a side note to this, Todd, I recalled, and I was looking at YouTube today, that when you guys did a Kiss Cruise pre-party down in Miami, Vinnie Vincent got up with you guys, and he was in his full Kiss makeup, and that was maybe the first time in, I don't know, 30, 40 years that he had performed. Like, take us through that 5 minutes. You ended up singing "Lick It Up." You took the lead vocal on that. What was that whole experience like?
It was fun for the fans. I mean, the place was packed. Vinny, I think he did makeup for the other appearance he did in the Kiss thing. I think he just had. I mean, he's very pale. Uh, I I think he. I don't remember if he had all the makeup or not, but um, we the night before we went over a couple things with him, and it went fine. I was surprised at the preparedness of him, or lack thereof. I was surprised that he didn't want to play any lead. Uh, it was fun for the fans. Lick it up. I had to put some of the lyrics down because I really don't know the song. I know the melody, but I barely. But I didn't know the lyrics, so I had to put a cheat sheet down on the ground, and it wasn't particularly out of my range. And I could sing that a fun song. It was fun. It really was fun to do. I just was not used to um, his persona, and I really don't know that much, or didn't know that much about him. I went, what's going on with this guy? What's his story? And you never really know the whole story to him and his
Right.
personality and things he's doing or going through. But it was, I say nothing derogatory. It was just different. Um,
Yeah.
but it was fun. At the same time, it was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's always good for to see a guy like that pop up out of nowhere, and he's got this mystique about him, and who knows where he is or what he is these days. But anyway,
Yeah.
so as we want to get into a little bit of remembrance of John's life, John, of course, passes April of 2023.
Right.
I'm about an hour and a half away from Wappingers Fall and Poughkeepsie in that area. I can't say I ever met John in person, but I do have some friends, Brian Rodemaker from Rock Eyes, Kenny Kessel from the Metal Voice, that knew him pretty well personally. I wanted to be up there. I had a Friday night to myself. I took a ride up there, and it was a really enjoyable night. Number one, because they moved it in from the outdoors. It was supposed to be at a park, and it was supposed to rain real heavy, and they brought it into what was used to be the old Mid Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, a little concert theater that has a rich history of every band playing there. But Todd, the night was great. It wasn't just about the performance, but you know, there's testimonials from his priest. His wife gets up there. There were a couple local DJs and radio personalities that got up there and told stories. Hearing the story where John either wanted to or did, become an early Sunday morning DJ on radio to play Italian songs, stuff like all this kind of stuff I knew nothing about. So, maybe just what were your reflections and memories of this concert a week ago?
It, it went by so quickly. Pat and I talked about doing this for quite some time, and we wanted to do it last year. It never came to pass, obviously. So Pat, big kudos out to Pat for organizing it. That guy is I thought I had my own, circus here, I'm my own monkey in my own circus, but that guy can balance and do all kinds of stuff, and he put it together. It was very hard. People contributed, like you mentioned. Uh, so many people pulled it together, and then I was just coming off of. I had a slight vocal injury, just after some I was over singing, blah blah blah. So I kind of nursing my voice back into singing 17 songs, every day, trying to get in shape for this thing. Which luckily voice came back just second day of rehearsal. It like came back strong. Like okay, everything's good. But we had two rehearsals with the 4x8 band. Everybody went over their homework as much as they could, and then we had Budgie and come in, and we just went backstage. We went over some stuff. We did a Zoom call. I think the week prior to do some arrangements, and we had a lot of people come in as guests. A couple of people came in as guests, but it was highly emotional for a lot. For me, it did hit one point when somebody had asked me to tell the story of my phone call with him the day that he passed. I mean, like hours before it passed, and it wasn't actually. And I sat there. I was having the acoustic guitar that Pat. We were doing a couple, doing some soul stuff, and the damn thing wasn't tuned, but. I asked, I said, what? Because I had my in-ears in. The guy said, tell the story. And I went, oh, okay. Well, and the story was that my story was that I was up early, get ready to walk my dog, and I got a phone call from John. So I picked the phone, it was this very phone, and said, hey, what's up, Johnny? What's going on? Hello, butt dial, John. Butt dial, Johnny. What you doing? Okay. So I hung up, and I texted him. I said, hey, you rang with the butt dial? And he responded, said, and I still have the text. And he said, I did. Oh, I hope it didn't wake you. I said, no, I'm up walking the dog. I said, no problem. I said, hey, let's talk later on or something to that effect. So that was the last time I heard from him.
Mm.
And I'm going through it now, but it's very hard for us to tell that he passed. So I'm sitting on stage telling this story last Friday, and it's like all I could think of was like the dead silence, and I'm going, all right, I'm gonna try to tune this guitar again, So I went down to tune it, but everybody has their stories, and John was an incredible man, from the musician, producer, songwriter, contributor, bass player. Oh my God, when he would play, when John Regan and Anton and I would be doing sound checks or whatever for or tracking, the sound was unbelievable. It's just heavy as all get out. And of course, Ace would join, and Ace was Ace, and he'd come into like a bull in a china shop and just smoke it with his style. But John was so solid, and John and I play very much the same way, very English backbeat, just lay it, I'm principally a rhythm player, that very heavy rhythm player. And the stories that people would share, Richie Scarlet would talk about, and Pat Gasparini and all the band people, it was very heartfelt, and it seemed like it went by too quickly. But it took a lot of prep, and then moving it over because we knew it was going to rain. We kept watching the weather like 2 weeks out, and then the day before, Pat says it looks like it's going to rain. So I know, I'm watching it. So what do you think we should do? I said, let's move it. We got to move it. And so I was the one that was dead. I said, some people got upset about it. I said, well, we're not going to please the 2 or 3 that are upset about the fact that we're not playing, the Wappingers gazebo in front of his benches. I would have loved that too, but the rain came down torrential amounts. So it was the right move to move, and luckily, Pat got the center to donate the center to us to do that. So we were very fortunate. So yeah,
Listen, I will tell you, Todd, being in the crowd, I mean, I again, I don't know the outdoor shows just from any experience, there's time limits with those and they got to be in by certain ordinances.
Mhm.
Felt like to me, like, you guys played a little under 2 hours. It was great. And what I loved about it was it felt natural. It felt real. You guys were up there, you were changing guitars, talking to each other in between songs. There was mistakes, there was restarts. It didn't have to be a perfect show. It felt like five friends and your guests getting up there and just like it was real. And that's what I really appreciated about it. And changing the song at the end. You guys are ready to do Rocket Ride, and I see Richie whispering in your ear, and next thing you know, you're doing Cold Gin. It's like, it's just cool stuff like that. Very like avant-garde,
Yeah, yeah.
impromptu.
And that's exactly the way it was supposed to be. And we all talked about, and I brought it up as well for reiteration, is that look, this is not going. And I said it, I think at the top after the first two songs, I said, this is not going to be a bomb, 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 bomb type set. This is where we're going to talk. I'll talk a little background about the songs, like the two songs we said. We have Frehley's Comet, we just played, and here's another song. It was supposed to be pause and talk and draw John stories into each song or segment, and very aloof. We've all done the frenetic show things, which is fun, but it wasn't a night for that because it wasn't about us and look at me and how good I am and what I'm
Right.
doing and bullshit. It was about John, and I wanted to talk stories and talk about John, and as did everybody else to whatever varying degree that they did. So I'm glad that you appreciated that, because that's exactly what we wanted to do. Very aloof, and Rob and I always fight on stage about stuff, because that's just, we constantly battle, but I love him to death. He loves me to death, but we always fight about silly stuff. And it was funny when Scott, after we did Breakout, and we're going to do a Rocket Ride, and Scarlet says, I don't want to do Rocket. We always did Rocket Ride. Let's do Cold Gin. I'd rather do Cold. Okay, we'll do a Cold Gin. I don't care. Let's just do something. So it was
It's
fun.
impressive. You guys just did it and you knew it that quick.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's impressive.
It's we've all played it 1,000 times, so
Right.
but it was fun to play, and I think there was a time when I really didn't want to play a lot of those songs much, but the older I get to do these songs like that, they become fun again. Like Rock Soldiers became fun again for me to do,
Mhm.
and one song, words are not enough.
Yeah.
I've done that a couple of times, and that's a great song. And we did it. I did it with Anton Fig and Brad Lang of the Bullet Boys, and Keith Robert War from Las Vegas, who does a great Ace. I did that a couple of years ago, and that came out great. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, for John, and that was a gig that John couldn't make, so we got Brad Lang to do it out here in California. But yeah, we had a blast, and that the whole point was to make it fun.
Maybe the final question about the night, but who was the younger gentleman that came out to do the Peter Frampton song "Baby I Love Your Way"? Who was that? Because I recall it was and that was John's bass he was playing, correct?
Yes, John had a lot of basses, one of which I have, the red Tokai bass, and the other Tokai went to this young man. He's 18 years old. He is the son of a good friend of John that worked at the radio station, I believe, there. Uh, and so they became good friends. And John and his father, I met his father, and then I think his nickname's 6'8" or 6'8" or something, because the guy's tall.
Yeah, he was
So
a
is
big guy.
so is the son. But Kathy had mentioned to both Pat, or actually Pat and me, that she would like to have this young gentleman play bass on one or two songs, because she knew we were going to do a couple Frampton tunes. One we didn't get to do You Feel, and we worked that up, and it sounded great. I was upset that we didn't get to do it. Ran out of time. So we only got to do Baby I Love Your Way with him, and the kid nailed it. And we did a Zoom meeting. Matter of fact, right where I'm sitting, we all had a meeting with about, okay, I want to do this, and here's the edits for these songs. But Baby I Love Your Way would do it exactly the way it's done. And actually, I missed something up in the end. I thought it was another song. I thought we skipped out the keyboard player solo, but we didn't. And we did exactly, so it was easy to do. So I said, just learn the song as it is on the record, the live performance, and he did. And I was just blown away by how solid the kid was. So his heart's in it, and he's got a future as long as he keeps some other job to pay for his musical interest, you know. But yeah, his name's Ben Reynolds, and he's a local kid there, only 18 years old. I had him laughing about a bunch of stuff because backstage we were going over stuff, and I'd be singing the lyrics, and just for fun, I'd change them up, and change the innocent lyrics to some, smacking some bitch ass or something like that. And he was just sitting there laughing, trying to concentrate and play. Uh, but it was fun, and those are things that he'll remember forever because I remember when people did it to me. Like, well, we're gonna do it this way. I'm like, what? I rehearsed it this way. But it was fun, and that's who the young kid was, and he did a really good job. And Peter Gallinari on keyboards, who plays with Richie, great guy, phenomenal keyboard player. I said, look, this is what we want to do, and he was like, oh, I can do that. So he brought his keyboard. They did all the cool Bob Mayo parts, and it was fun. It was really fun.
It was good, and I'm sure it puts the little closure to the memorial for John and his wife and family. It was great for the fans to be there, so I really really appreciate you guys putting it out. And for the listeners, go out on YouTube. There's a ton of videos out there about that show and photos out there on all the sites. But Tod, before I let you go, what's in store for you in 2024 for the rest of your year musically? Anything up?
Um, Yeah, I hit the ground running here on late Friday night, Saturday. My son and family, his wife and my 3-year-old granddaughter are in town. Tomorrow we're taking the motorhome out in the bay, the Mission Bay. I've got to get up early, get my park spot. We're going to have cornhole and margaritas and skateboards and scooters and a little pool. I'm doing a lot of family stuff right now. Because I've been doing guest appearances and a lot of other business stuff here on the property because I manage my family's commercial real estate, of which is very profitable, I should say. After all these years, my folks are 92 and 88, and so I pretty much run a lot of the majority of the business and taking care of everything here. There's talk about doing maybe another show with 4 by Fate later this year and then into next year. Not sure yet. I'm at 3 weeks. I'm flying out to see my daughter and family and 2 grandkids in Missouri for 4 days. And I'm gonna take acoustic guitar and I guess sing for some neighbors and friends or whatever. But 24, I pretty much I want to start a local band here. I'll be 67 in September. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking, but it's kind of like if I start a band here, at least it'll be fun to do it here. I may do that. I've got a lot of good players and friends here that are eager to do something, so I may record stuff here with this band and then put a live project together. I've got some musicians in mind. They're phenomenal players out here. I just got off the phone with a bass player that plays for 10 Cent and Revenge out of Arizona. They're coming into LA to do some stuff in November. They want me to come up and do a couple songs, which I'm going to do. 25 is probably looking more towards more productive. My autobiography will be done. I'm going to work on that and get it finished in the next few months and have that out before Christmas. Big surprise. And then I'll do an audiobook of that and some more recording after I did the 3 solo CDs, my Canvas solo series. I spent years doing those, and I was like, I just need to stay away from headphones and studio. So there's a lot on my plate. Every day's busy. Tomorrow I watch my 3-year-old granddaughter all day, so get ready
That's
for that.
great.
It's like chasing cats with balloons. Um, wait, but it'll be a lot of fun. And luckily, I still have a lot of energy. Otherwise, there's just no way I'd be able to do all the things that I do. Just no
Well, it
way.
sounds like you got a very full life, a very rewarding life, a very beautiful family.
Thank you.
And I was
Thank you.
glad to have a chance to spend an hour with you today. Tod, what are the socials that our listeners, where can we find all about Tod Howarth and 4 by Fate and anything else you want to plug?
For on Facebook, we have there's only there's a couple Tod Howarth out there. I think there's one that's fake. So, you got to see my face, and you can see the whole diatribe of all the posts. And I warn people, my main Tod Howarth Facebook page is all aspects of my life. It's not just music. It's about my family and a lot about I'm blue collar. I work every day. That's why my hands are all scarred to hell. I work on a lot of stuff, so my political views are as such. If you're offended, then move on, or whatever. But it's all about everything. It's all out there. There is a 4x8 page. There's also a Frehley's Comet page, and then another Tod Howarth, which has Frehley's Comet on it. There's also my Shopify site, which has a lot of my merchandise on it, which is primarily 4x8 shirts and some CDs. Soon to be my book. That's todhowarth.biz. And I have a website, todhowarth.com, but I haven't put it back up because at this point it's kind of pointless. But that's what's happening as far as my social media goes. And I hope to be more active on it and get more new product up there. But, like I said, when I'm the single monkey in my own little circus, it gets very busy.
You're a do-it-yourself guy, and at the further on 40, 50 years into your career. So, Tod, we'll make sure we have all the socials posted on this episode when we do put it out there live. So, just as a reminder, get up to our website, metalmayhemroc.com, and join our community by signing up for our email newsletter, as this is the best way to stay updated on new podcast episodes, such as what you're listening to now with Tod Howarth. Monday nights, we also have a radio show on metaldevastationradio.com. And again, if you like what we're doing, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. So, Tod, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And listeners, this has been Metal Walt, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, Tod, for pulling this off short notice. And I took my guitars in to be working my acoustic, I could have sang a couple things, here for you, but it is what it is, but thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. And I'll be back. I'll be back. Okay. Yeah, no, we'll be in touch. I got your email now, so I'll keep that handy in my little database there. And I can always hit you up on Facebook Message. And again, it's just myself, like you. It's a DIY shop. It's myself and one other guy. We have lots of episodes in the can, but whenever we get to this one and it gets out there, I'll make sure I reach out to you and just send you a link, and you can repost it and do whatever you want with it.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. I'm looking at the Metal Mayhem logo. I'm thinking, that's great. I was going to sing, "Shadows grow so long before my eyes." I'm thinking, that's not really Metal Mayhem, so I can't really sing that,
Oh, you will. I'll on the Facebook, I'll text you a few, and I'll give me your T-shirt size. I'll get you a couple T-shirts, all right?
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just send me your mailing address, and I'll get you some stuff out, some swag, all right?
Oh, fantastic. I appreciate that.
Metal for Life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.